What's my video about today? Oh, good grief. I got to install these doors, but that's not what this particular video is about. Even though I just put this door on, doesn't that look nice? Looks just like it's supposed to be. I put brand new hinges on here because Mommy likes the nickel hinges instead of the brass. I put this nice doorknob on here, the strike plate on. I even got the door bumper on. The door stop is what you call that. And I'll show you how to do that on another video. It's not on this particular video, okay? But I wanted to finish up my saga of the leaking bathtub. And what do you suppose I found? Oh, there's little Pippa's. Hey, Pippa! Her name's Pip, but we call her Pippa's. Pippa's. I don't know how that came about, but anyway. Remember I told you, if you were with me on the last video, I thought for sure it was going to leak right down in here where the motor was. We saw some black down on there, and let me get my my phone out and shine the light down in there. See all that black down in there? And then there's some right down in there. If you look down in there, oh, look at that. Ooh. And I thought for sure that's where it was going to be dripping after all of the different things I went through. And do you know, hey, I'm big enough to say, to admit when I'm wrong. I mean, when I'm incorrect, because you know, we took a bath last night, and well, I filled it up high enough for the jet so I could turn the jet button on, and I thought for sure this was going to start dripping. It wasn't dripping. I'm looking around, nothing seemed to be dripping, and I was kind of a little perturbed, like, okay, what's the deal? Where is it going? Because all of this, where the trap was and the P-trap and all that, it looked okay. I shined my flashlight down in there, nothing was wet. And then after Mommy got out of the bathtub, I got back in there and ran the jacuzzi a little bit, and I'm sitting in there. Everything's all nice and quiet in here. We had she usually lights the candle here and this other candle, and I had the light off, and I was hearing a clock. I thought for sure, tick, tock, tick, 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 tock. And I thought, that sounds odd because there's no clock in here. The heater was off and everything. Mommy came in here and I said, I'm hearing it ticking. And she looks down and she goes, oh, there's water down here. And believe it or not, there was water. This whole plate down there was wet. And I'm like, how on earth is that little plate right down in there was all wet and saturated? I couldn't believe it. And you know what the culprit was? Well, look at this. Here's the pipes and everything. This pipe here is the suction pipe. You know, when the water goes back in, and then it shoots it out to all the other ones. And you see this little tubing that's attached on there. Well, see, it's got a little end on it. And the funny thing was, this thing was wrapped up over here, and it went down, and it was down here low like that. I had seen this before, but it looked like there was a reason why this was here, and I thought this was a shutoff or something, or maybe it was an air intake or something. And it was just sitting there, and this was dripping. It was dripping. It was situated so it was kind of angled like that, and the water was coming out of there, and I could hear it dripping on top of that plate. I could not believe it. This was acting as a little siphon. After the water got up in there, it went in here, And this, because it wasn't connected anywhere, and I'm not sure where it connects. There's a pipe right here that's open, and when I feel in there, there's a little nib. And I'm thinking this might plug into that, but I'm afraid to push on it because I don't want to get this starting to leak if that's not the case. And I'm not sure. I need to kind of look around to see where this could possibly go. And I didn't know it went to anything. Okay, and apparently the last person who owned this condo didn't know where it went either, because it was running and dripping. And I'll bet you years ago, whoever moved in here from before, they had a leak here, and they probably thought, well, I guess we won't use a tub anymore. We'll just use a shower from now on. Nobody told us about it. The home inspector, he didn't catch it either. And because it was black in here last time I looked at this, I thought it could have been dripping from there. But you know, that's probably black. And I'm thinking years ago, maybe they had a leak there. Maybe the motor was bad. Maybe they replaced the motor and did everything, and they left all that black in there. And I'm going to have to get some Clorox and spray some Clorox down in there and get a little brush in there and do away with that stuff. And I'm glad I found that, because I'll be able to get rid of that. And maybe the motor never did get replaced. Maybe it was this culprit all along. And the water hit there, and it might have traveled this way and kind of sunk down in this area, you know, for years. Who knows? But, you know, when I look downstairs, let's go back downstairs. Let me show you something. I'm making some educated assumptions. And I showed you before, if you haven't watched those previous videos, part one, this might be a three-parter on the saga of the leaking bathtub. Remember, it was I was showing you it was dripping from right here. And when I was painting the ceiling from before, you see that patch area there in the ceiling? Can't really, I can see it pretty good, but you can see it a lot better over at this angle here. Somebody patched right in here, and see there's a strip right in there. And I'm thinking they might have had that leak problem years ago. And they might have cut this sheetrock open and patched it and spray textured it and everything, and then it started leaking again. They might not have found the leak. See, you can kind of see here now. Here's a patch area here. Boom, boom, boom. And then there's another kind of line along there. Well, I'm thinking this thing has leaked before, and the owner, he probably did not disclose it. You know, if you get ready to sell a condo or house, duplex, apartment, whatever, if you know that there's certain issues on it, you're supposed to disclose them. Did you know that? This is a law. And the owner didn't disclose the leak. The home inspection report, you have to have a licensed inspector come out and do a home inspection prior to you purchasing the home, you know, while you're in escrow. Well, he didn't catch it either. And it's just unfortunate that we were the lucky ones to have to deal with it. And we caught it, and that's what it was last night. Man, it was drip, 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 all in there. It would drip faster when you turned the suction thing on, and then after a while it would go a little slower. Well, I took a 5-gallon bucket, set this in the bucket, and it kept dripping. And I thought maybe if you lift this hose up higher than this outlet, maybe it won't drip. And it wasn't dripping for a while, and then it dripped a little bit more, because this acts as a siphon. And when you're in the tub, if you got the water any higher than that, and you're moving the water around, or you're filling the tub up later and you're putting a little bit more hot water in, you're forcing more water down into the tub, thereby forcing more water through here and pressure through here, and then it acts as a suction, and then it fills this pipe up, and eventually, even though this line was up higher and I had it up into the bucket, it would still pump up there, and it would start dripping, and you leave it long enough, then it would start dripping more, and then if you have this pipe down lower, it would just almost run. And so see, the first 4 or 5 times we took baths in here, we didn't notice anything, because I think this little pipe here was setting on the bottom. Thereby we couldn't hear it drip, drip, drip. And when we had this cover on, see, this is a fiberglass tub, there's the cover, the inspection cover that fits over this. After I pulled that off, I could hear it dripping. I think I could have heard it dripping even with the cover on, but I think this was pushed down there, and then we had this cover off a couple times because our water pressure, when we turn the hot water side on, we don't get very much water pressure as opposed to the cold water side. And I thought, maybe if I pull this off, maybe there's some way down in here, you know, a little valve or something where I could turn on the pressure higher or something, and I didn't see anything, and I think this got resituated a little bit. It got lifted up off of the bottom, and then I could hear it drip. Had I not heard it drip, I might not have ever even seen it. And this thing, well, I put it in a 5-gallon bucket last night while I was taking a bath, and just you know, 10 minutes, it filled up a 5-gallon bucket, maybe that much. I mean, that was a lot of water, and that was only maybe 10 minutes. So can you imagine the other nights we were in there, Mommy would take a 10-15 minute bath, I would go in there and take a 15-20 minute bath, and the water was just drip, 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 drip on that plate, and then the water went down on the subfloor, and then it ran underneath this tile, and where the subfloor, wherever it had a crack in the subfloor, it drained down to the bottom of the floor joist, ran along the bottom of the floor joist, and out on that, down there on the corner of the stairwell. And so, you see, I mean, I could have been right the first time where the P-trap was, the adjustable P-trap or the drain. Thankfully I wasn't. I could have been right over here where the motor was and where I saw the black. I could have been right there because that was almost in line with that too. And with this wet, I mean, it didn't necessarily make a perfectly straight line all the way out there. It could have kind of went off at a slight angle, because when I measured, it was about in line with that, straight across from where it was dripping out of that ceiling over there. Son of a gun. Now, you know what? I don't even have to call a plumber because I figured it out on my own. Had I called a plumber, I don't know if he would have even been able to figure it out. He might have convinced me to cut a hole in the sheetrock ceiling in the bathroom downstairs and all that kind of stuff. Don't have to do that now. And lucky for me, I don't know if you watched the other previous video. I wish, you know, if you ever watch one of my videos, and if it has a part 1, part 2, part 3, your best bet would be to watch all of them. Even if you come in and you see a title and you're at part 3, watch part 1 and 2, because you might learn quite a few different interesting things on that too. Well, there was here's the half bath downstairs. Of course, I still got to put it together because we just recently moved in here, and of course we moved in before everything got done, and because we had to get out of the other place and all that kind of stuff. So hey, sometimes you got to do what you got to do, right? So we're just using this as storage right now. We don't need to use this bathroom right now. We got 2 bathrooms upstairs. What the heck, right? And so there was an exhaust fan right there. I took the guts out of that. I had to actually cut it because I couldn't get to the mounting screws, because I was hoping I could just see surface mounted screws and undo the screws, push that out of the way to look up in there just as an inspection point. I couldn't do that, so I cut I cut that side. I was able to loosen up this side off of some little clips, bent that up out of the way, shine my my phone flashlight up through there, and was able to determine exactly where I was in relationship to the other bathroom and stuff like that. And I was able to make some measurements and do some deductions and assumptions and all that kind of stuff. Had I not been thinking, I might have just blown through, okay, let's just cut the ceiling, because I was so sure that there was going to be a water leak up there where I'd have to get a plumber in here, cut the pipes, shut the water off, or do something with the drain or something like that. I even was toying with that yesterday before I found the actual cause of the leak. And then I was even thinking, hey, wait a minute, maybe in the garage I could cut a inspection hole up there, shimmy through, because this is a 9-foot ceiling, shimmy through a little area above the 8-foot ceiling over here. Granted, that would have only been able to give me a little bit of room to squeeze through there, be a little small little person, and go through there and go up there. Okay, I was even thinking about doing that before I was able to figure out how to get this thing cut out of there. And had there been a leak, I might have been able to go through there and access all of that area, but because there's no leak, hey, I don't have to do that. I don't have to patch anything in the garage. I don't have to patch this ceiling here in the bathroom. I can put this back together. It's not going to take me that long to put that exhaust fan housing back together and screw it back together and all that kind of stuff. I was able to, when it was leaking, after I damped it all, I should have made a video of that, but it was in the middle of the night, it was dark, and I was kind of pissed off and stuff, and this was all puckered down. After all the water receded out of here and I damped that, dry damped it with a paper towel, folded up paper towel, I was able to get most of the water out of there. And I thought, hey, I think I can just push all of that all back up where this was bubbled up. This was bubbled along here and all the way over to about there. I thought, if I can push that up tight and kind of dry it and stuff, and 15 minutes later did another go at it and stuff, I thought, once it dries 100%, it might stick up there, and I may not have to patch this. Patch it and skim it and sand it and spray texture it and try to blend it into the spray texture, another patch on the ceiling, right? And I thought, maybe I can get by without having to do that. And sure enough, everything has stuck back up in there. Granted, I've got some hairline cracks. I got to put a little caulking there, some there, right there. And I'm letting this dry out. This crack has gotten just slightly a little bit bigger from the first day. You see there? The water dripped out right there, and it traveled this way, and it cracked this and separated it all the way up to there. So I can recalc that, fix that little bit there, and hardly make it look like you didn't even know that was there. Put 2 coats of flat paint on there, because that's what I have on the ceiling. If I just put 1 coat, it might not blend in. I'll put 2 coats on that, and I'll have that fixed. And here I thought it was going to be a major ordeal. When that thing started dripping over here, Mommy was having a heart attack. And we got a flood, it's flooding. Mike, come back here. I mean, Joe, come out here, we got a leak. And I'm thinking, you know, whenever something like that happens, you always think of the worst. I'm thinking, good grief, I'm just spending, you know, a couple months getting all this painted, getting the carpets ripped out, getting the flooring ripped out, repainting the door frames, repainting the baseboards, doing all kinds of stuff in here, and trying to put everything back together. And now all of a sudden in my mind, I've got visions of cutting sheetrock ceilings out, and I might have had to cut the ceiling out in the kitchen because I wasn't sure if the tub, in fact, the drain on the tub is in the kitchen. The wall in the kitchen is about right here, and the drain for the tub is over the kitchen ceiling. And I was thinking, having nightmares about cutting that out, patching the ceiling, repainting the whole ceiling down there so it doesn't look like a patch and all that kind of stuff. That's what I was thinking of when Mommy's saying we got a leak, you know. So I'm thinking major. problems and stuff, and here it was, this stupid little pipe, drip, 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 just acting as a siphon. And you know, I'm not going to leave it like that. Even with this being higher than that, did you know the water can still siphon up there? Because when you fill up the tub, the water gets in there, and then it just kind of pulsates that, and the more water you get in there, the more it forces a friction, a pumping motion, and this can fill up with water, even though this pipe is higher, this outlet is higher than the inlet. And I don't know. So I gotta figure that out. I think I can look it up on the internet and figure out where to hook that up. I mean, worst case scenario, I could just pinch this together and put a little wire on there, or put a cap on it, whatever. But I think there's a reason for this. It probably lets air go in there, and it probably helps the whole thing. I mean, I think everything will work if I pinched it off, but I'm gonna do my due diligence and see exactly where this gets connected, because there's no way I want to have a bucket out here having this drip into a bucket every time I take a bath. No, I don't want to do that. Okay, so I've still got to kind of look at that and figure that out. I'm thinking it goes in there, but I'm not quite sure. Like I say, there's a nib in there that almost looks like if I force it on there, this thing could push in there. But I don't want to do that and then find out that's not right, because then it could start still filling up with this with water, and then start dripping out of that. Now, I don't want that either. Okay, so hey, I got it fixed. I don't have to have a plumber coming in here or anything. I will spray some Clorox and stuff in there to get that mold buildup out of there. So I'm glad I found that out. I'm also looked at this to see why the water pressure was low, and I'm not sure why the water pressure is low for that. I may have to next time we get a plumber over here to install the toilet and the sink in that half bath downstairs, I may ask him about what his thoughts are. I don't think there's any way of taking this out and adjusting the water pressure right in here. I don't think there is. And it's like where else could it possibly be on why the water pressure is so low there? Because we got plenty of water pressure in the sinks. When I run the sink on the hot water side, I got plenty of pressure. See, almost pretty much the same pressure as the cold water on both sides. Hot water, see? So, you know, it's not like the pressure of the whole house is low. So I'm not quite sure what's going on with that. We did take the water heater out. It was only a 40-gallon water heater, and we put in a tankless water heater. And maybe on the tankless water heater, because this is so big, maybe the pressure is not that much, and because it's a tankless, there's only so much pressure that comes out at any one time, thereby, because the tub spout is bigger than the little faucet spouts, maybe that's why there's hardly any pressure. I mean, look at that. That's it for the water pressure for the hot water. And when you got the cold water, look, you got plenty. So worst case scenario, I told Mommy, hey, you want to take a bath? Start the bath a few minutes before you get in. What's the big deal? Yeah. See? So, you know what? If it's not turned on 100%, you get just a little bit more water out of there. There's full blast. If I take it off a little, yeah. See? It gives more. I may have to tell Mommy that. The quirks of owning a 15-year-old condo, right? And eventually we may We may do a remodel in this bathroom, but for the time being, this is going to work out for us. And so yes, I'm not going to leave this here like this. I'm not going to forget about it. If I do, it's going to start leaking again. Of course, I won't forget about it. Okay, so there you go. If you got a tub, so what's the crux of the video? If you got a leak, make sure you check out every possibility before you start thinking about cutting walls open, cutting sheetrock ceilings open, doing all that kind of stuff. I would have been looking like a fool, and I would have been pissed off if I would have had a plumber come out here and the plumber says, oh, we got to cut the ceiling out downstairs in the kitchen. Oh, oops, we got to now cut the ceiling out in the bathroom. Oh, oops, here it is right here. Sorry about that. You know, do some of your own inspecting, because sometimes you might find it when others can't find it. Or once you do find it, what I was going to do was, once I did find it, I thought, if I can fix it, I'll go ahead and fix it. If I can't, and I don't feel comfortable about it, I'll get the plumber out here, and at least he doesn't have to go through all the rigmarole and of all the inspecting to try to find it, or give me some bad information or bad assumptions or bad advice and start cutting ceilings open when it was just this. Okay, so if you've got a tub that is a jacuzzi type tub, look all around, all the different variables on it to see if you can find out what that leak is. Even if you got a regular tub, even if you don't have, your tub's not leaking and your shower's leaking, check everything out. As for showers leaking, or bathtub walls leaking, I've had one guy, he had the spout, the spout up against the wall like this, and he had the handle up against the wall, and the handle kind of looked like a shower handle, like this. Okay, he had something like that, and he ended up having to replace the whole guts of the whole system. And so he had tiles on the wall and everything, and he ended up ripping off the tiles, and the sheetrock got all damaged on the backside, and now he's going to have to patch that. He's going to have to install new tiles and all that kind of stuff. And I thought to myself, hey, if you ever have that, and if the backside of your wall doesn't back up to a shower, let's say the back of your wall is a sheetrock wall in a closet, in a storage closet, in your bedroom wall, or something like that, it would be easier to cut a hole on the back side of the wall from where the valve is, so that you're just cutting out a sheetrock wall. Do all your work from this side, so that you don't have to start ripping off your tile on your walls and all that kind of stuff. And then all you'd have to do is patch your sheetrock wall. You see what I'm saying? So there's always two ways to start thinking about stuff. Same goes with your shower. So you got an issue with your shower, and the back side of this wall butts up to a sheetrock ceiling or a sheetrock wall like this in your bedroom, in your closet, whatever. Now, even right here, if I ever had a problem with that, and I didn't want to rip that whole thing out and cut out these tiles and have to do all that, you see where that is? That's right up here. I'd have to cut a hole in the sheetrock. I could do all the work here, then I could patch the sheetrock, respray texture the sheetrock, and then just repaint this one wall. Boom, from here to there, up to the ceiling. And if I wasn't that good with spray texturing, and if I was concerned that this spray texture was not going to match, I could skim out this entire wall with 2 coats of skimming material, sand it nicely, get it all nicely smooth, then respray texture just this one wall. So it all blends in perfectly, no patch whatsoever. Boom! Instead of getting blinders on, like, you know, those horse blinders for horse racing, you only focus on the one thing in front of you. And then you think later on, oh crap, I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think about going on the back side of the wall, cutting out the sheetrock. What's wrong with me? Live and learn. That's called living and learning along the way. Well, I lived and learned, and I'm hoping that you're going to live and learn by all the things that I went through to check this out. I am so glad I didn't cut out any sheetrock. Worst thing I have to do now is put together that inspection access where the exhaust fan was. And I've got, you know, an hour or so to mess around with that, monkey with that. But at least I don't have to patch any walls. So hopefully you can learn from this video. Yeah, I am so glad I found out what it was and that it wasn't a big deal at all. Only this tubing. I cannot really believe that that's all it was. Hey, well, that's all I got for this time. But I'll be back with more videos. Glad I got that figured out. Well, I'm just about ready to put the guts back in there, and see, it's got two little prong goodies on there, and then there's a screw right there, and that screw holds that end up, and then you plug it in. And you see, I just pushed that back. I cut a little piece of sheet metal, drilled some holes in it, put a screw in there, and screwed that. I was going to put a screw there too. I started to put a screw there so I could get that one tight, and then I thought, hey, I don't need to waste my screw on that. This is just going to be held back because it's spring-loaded anyways. I could put another screw right there, but I don't know if I'm going to. I think I'm just going to leave that. That was the tabs that I broke off from before, because this has a mounting bracket that goes back beyond that that's screwed in. It's not going anywhere. And then see, the bracket that was on there, I just drilled a little hole and put a screw back in there, held that exactly where it went. And then remember this top piece, I cut it in half. I drilled a hole in there. I rebent this. It's held up with that little nib, and those right there, I had to rebend that, push that up, pre-drilled a hole in there from before, then drilled it all the way through because there's a wood stud. That's the ceiling joist actually right there. And I just ran the screw up there. You know, do I have to put a screw way up there? No. That's all I'm going to do. And you know what? That's going to take care of this exhaust fan. I'm glad I tore that apart to get in there to do that inspection. Okay, that's it. That'll be easy from there. Oh, I remember what I was going to show you. I was going to show you my little flashing. Remember, I saved some little pieces of flashing. Here's a little piece out of that metal stud that I had. And I cut a little piece off, and you know, there's that last little bit. I could bend it. Here's another piece of the stud that I was saving, remember? And you know, it's always good to have little pieces like that. And let me show you that metal stud if you weren't with me from before. I bought it at the Home Depot. It came 10-foot length, and it's a piece of track for building metal stud walls. Here's a little piece of it. See, I took there's another piece of the track. I took my tin snips into the store, and I cut it in half, 5 feet, because it was 10 foot long. See? And I can use this for all kinds of sheet metal pieces of trim and shims and straps and all that kind of stuff. And if you don't have that, hey, that's a good way to do it. And you know, you can buy little pieces of galvanized sheet metal. Here's 2 pieces I got at the Home Depot, okay? And I forget what gauge that is. It's small enough, strong enough, but yet small enough to where you can cut it with with tin snips. I think that's 24 gauge. I think this is 24 gauge. And see, they just came in this length, just like this. That was like $7. And that piece of track was, oh, I don't know, $7 or $8 for a whole big old long piece. That's 25 gauge on that track. And they have other pieces of flashing. I actually needed a piece of flashing that was 18 by 18. And I went to the Home Depot a couple times, and they didn't have 18 by 18. I thought they might have 12 by 12, 18 by 18, 24 by 24. Well, they had a 24 by 36, I think, for almost, oh, I forget what it was, $27, $28. And they didn't have it in stock. So I went back 3 or 4 different times, and I thought, you know what? Phooey on that. Maybe I can do it a different way. I'm always trying to think about how to do things different ways. And so I saw these 2 pieces of flashing there, and these were what was that? 12 by 24, I think. And I needed 18 by 18. Well, you know, I'm just putting it on the floor, and I'll show you that another time. And so I'm going to just overlap one on top of the other, and then I'll cut off a little piece of the flashing because I don't need 24/18, and I'll have a 6-inch piece. I'll have a 6 by 12-inch piece of flashing for, you know, who knows what down the road. And then on one of these other ones, when I overlap it, I'll have another piece that I don't really need up there. And so I'm going to cut that off. I got my 10 snaps, I'll just zip it off, and I'll have some more flashing. That's a good way to have flashings, and that's, you know, you just never know when you're going to need it. And plus, it's easy to store. And I've used little bits of flashing for shims, for straps, for little L-angle brackets, for all kinds of stuff. So don't forget that when you're at the store. You see how that fits? You just unplug that. There's the little mounting screw right there, and then the 2 nibs fit in those little slots back there. That holds up the back. So if you ever need to take one of those down, that's how you do it. In case you ever need to replace your motor, sometimes you can replace your motor that way. Take it down to the hardware store, take it apart, take it down here, and sometimes they'll sell the whole square piece. Other times maybe it's just the motor, and as long as those 2 screw areas will fit, and it may fit up in there, you know, and then you can take the fan off, reattach the fan, or get it with the same fan. Okay, let's turn this back on, make sure it works. Hey. Oh, you know what? It could be hitting the, I'm going to have to look at that, because remember, I put those 2 screws in right in here, and I think that's hitting that screw. I don't know. I might be able to slide this over a little bit and have it miss that screw, or take it out, put a different screw in there, and you know, I might have to do that. Silly thing. Okay. All right. Joe's work is never done. Well, another head scratcher for sure. Those screws right there were not touching it at all. And right in there, to put that screw in there, I had to wedge it over, and once it tightens up, it's funny because once it tightens up, it moves this over this way just a hair, and that little bit causes this whole thing not to turn. Isn't that funny? Because I took this and plugged it in, and here, I'll plug it in out here. I'll plug it in and show you. I'll show you that it works here. Look at that. Any direction I've got this, it works. And I put it back in there, turned it, and it started working a little bit. I left the screw loose just a hair, and it started, then it stopped. And so what I'm going to do, you know, at first I thought, well, maybe something's gumming this up, but no, it turns fine. Once there's a slight wedge on it, just a hair, it causes this not to go. I'm not gonna worry about it. I'm just gonna drill another another screw next to this, a little bit big, a big enough hole for a sheet metal screw or a wood screw. I think I'm just going to use a wood screw, and I'll have the hole big enough. So I'm just going to use that screw right there. I'm going to make it big enough so the threads go through that, but then I'm going to drill a smaller hole up into the housing, and then I'll be able to tighten this right up, and I think it's going to work. I'm going to try that and see if it's going to work, because I thought, okay, I'm going to have to go back to the store. Do I have to go back to the store? Take this apart like I was telling you and get a whole new assembly? No, it's because it's been wedged, and because I took this apart, bent it, cut it, I put it back together, but you know, it's hardly, like I say, hardly wedged up here at all. And that little bit is causing that whole thing not to work. I tried it a couple different times, and so I thought, okay, phooey on that. Instead of tightening it up with that big screw. See, here's the screw that was in there. I'm not even going to use that. I'm not even going to do it. I'm just going to put another screw next to it, and I'll tighten it up, and I'll just do it that way and not get the plug perfectly in here, and then it will work because I've already tried it. Okay, and it'll work. It'll be fine. Well, I haven't plugged this in yet, and I wanted you to see what I see. I haven't turned it on just yet, but see, I drilled a new hole. I made that hole bigger, and I made a smaller hole into this, and this was pretty stout stuff. I needed to make sure there was no wires back in there, and I started out with a smaller drill bit, and then I increased it until I knew that this screw would screw up into it. And it's off a little bit. This should actually be tight up to that, but when I did that, it wedged this over, and it made this not turn. And so now I'm going to plug this in. I've got to make sure that's off over there. I'm going to plug that in like so, and I'm crossing my fingers that it's going to work this time. Look at that. Just because of that. Can you believe that? And so, hey, two ways to skin a cat, right? Just sometimes you have to Joe Guyver it and make it work. Okay. Looks like everything's okay. And remember, there was a gap over here from before. Okay? And that's just how it's going to live. And actually, after doing all that tweaking, it's up flush to there. Because remember, I was going to push this end up because it was sticking down, and I would have drilled a hole 1/2 inch above this 1/2 inch sheetrock, the face of it, put a screw in there all the way, and that would have been my shim to keep that pushed up. Well, it seems to be pushed up just fine right now. Okay. I'm going to leave it and call it good. If it ever started chattering or something, I could wedge this out, put a little caulking in there, let it push back. And in fact, I might do that if it starts rattling when I put the cover on. I don't think it's going to. But sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. What am I going to talk about next time? Well, I have no idea. I never know what I'm going to do next, but it might have something to do with these doorknobs.